There are moments in history when an entire people suddenly realize they have been living in a matrix. Not a technological matrix like in the movies, but a psychological one. A belief that they can do nothing on their own. On September 30th, 2022, the 20 million people of Burkina Faso woke up. And when a people awakens, nothing can stop them. Ibrahim Traoré did not just lead a simple military coup. He initiated a revolution of consciousness, transforming a nation from cannot to can do anything. For decades, the world had programmed Burkina Faso to believe it needed saving. It needed aid to survive. It needed foreign experts to develop. It needed outside help to exist. This was not just economic dependency, but psychological dependency, deeper and more dangerous than any other kind. When a people believe they cannot save themselves, they will never try. To understand why what is happening in Burkina Faso is so revolutionary, we must first understand the machine that has operated for decades to keep Africa in a state of dependency. This is a sophisticated system that operates on multiple levels. The first level is psychological. Through education, media, and even aid, African nations were taught that they were weak, backward, and in need of rescue. Every time a crisis occurred, the world didn't say, "You can solve this," but "We will help you." The second level is economic. The system was designed for Africa to export raw materials and import processed goods at prices many times higher. Burkina Faso exports cotton, but imports shirts. It has gold, but no jewelry. It grows cocoa, but doesn't produce chocolate. Every time they wanted to add value, they encountered technical obstacles, lack of capital, or no market. The third level is intellectual. The brain drain is not a natural phenomenon. It is a policy. Africa's best minds are drawn to the West to serve their economies. What remains is a dependency mindset, a feeling that all solutions must come from the outside. Even when there is a problem that can be solved with local knowledge, they wait for international experts. Burkina Faso before Ibrahim Traoré was the perfect case study of this system. A nation of 20 million people, with fertile land and abundant resources, yet 40% of its population lived in poverty. They imported food while 80% of the population worked in agriculture. They had universities, but the best students dreamed of going abroad. They had a government, but major decisions had to be approved by donors. The collective psychology was we cannot live without them. Institutional capture occurred when government agencies were influenced by a donor mindset. Policies were not designed to create self-reliance, but to maintain dependency. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Believing in failure creates failure. When a people believe they cannot, they will not be able to. But there are moments in history when all these layers of deception are peeled away. When a people see the truth of their own strength. For Burkina Faso, that moment came when they realized that while waiting for aid to solve a food crisis, they were exporting grain to neighboring countries. When they discovered that while asking for loans to build roads, they had enough stone, enough labor, and enough skill to do it themselves. When they became aware that while complaining about a shortage of doctors, they had thousands of years of traditional medicine that had been forgotten. And at the center of this awakening is a man who has long understood that true strength does not come from the outside. Ibrahim Traoré is not just a leader. He is a philosopher of action, an architect of consciousness, a catalyst for transformation. To understand him, we must understand the philosophy he represents. The core belief of Ibrahim Traoré is that every people has within them everything necessary to prosper. This is not a political slogan, but a practical philosophy. He translates this belief into concrete policy. Instead of asking for food aid, he invests in local agriculture. Instead of inviting foreign experts, he creates conditions for local experts to thrive. Instead of borrowing money for construction, he mobilizes domestic resources and manpower. The historical foundation of this philosophy connects directly to Thomas Sankara and the philosophy of African liberation. Sankara once said, "We cannot carry out fundamental change without the free participation of women." Ibrahim Traoré expands on this. We cannot achieve transformation without the participation of the entire people. His modern adaptation is to apply ancient wisdom about community cooperation to contemporary challenges of food security, economic development, and national sovereignty. The psychology of a revolutionary like Ibrahim Traoré has distinct characteristics. Pattern recognition. He sees patterns that others miss. While others see poverty and think of aid, he sees potential and thinks of mobilization. Systems thinking. He understands that everything is connected. Food security is connected to national security. Economic independence is connected to political sovereignty. Cultural pride is connected to economic productivity. Long-term vision. He thinks in terms of generations, not electoral cycles. Decisions are judged based on their impact 20 to 30 years from now, not on current popularity. Courage of conviction. He is willing to confront powerful interests. When the World Bank advised that Burkina Faso should focus on exporting raw materials, he said no. When corporations wanted to maintain the status quo, he changed the rules of the game. Ibrahim Traoré's methodology is not just a vision, but a systematic approach. The first stage is consciousness raising. He changes the narrative about Burkina Faso's capabilities. Instead of, "We are poor and need help," the new narrative is, "We are rich in resources and need organization." He connects with cultural pride and historical memory. Thomas Sankara becomes a symbol, not of the past, but of possibility. He creates new symbols and a new language of possibility. Burkina Faso first is not blind nationalism, but a call to action. The second stage is institutional transformation. He restructures the government to serve the people, not donors. Ministries are reoriented from aid coordination to production support. The budget is reallocated from prestige projects to productive infrastructure. The decision-making process prioritizes long-term sustainability over short-term donor satisfaction. He realigns priorities from dependency to self-reliance and builds new partnerships based on equality rather than charity. The third stage is an economic revolution. The focus shifts to production capabilities rather than consumption patterns. He develops local value chains. Cotton is not just exported raw, but processed into textiles. Gold is not just extracted, but crafted into jewelry. Food is not just grown, but processed and packaged. He ensures that wealth circulates within the country instead of flowing out immediately. The fourth stage is a cultural renaissance. He revives traditional knowledge systems not as museum pieces, but as living tools. Traditional farming techniques are blended with modern technology. Traditional medicine is integrated with modern healthcare. Traditional governance is adapted for modern institutions. He creates a new identity for Burkina Faso, not as receivers, but as producers and innovators. But a philosophy means nothing without action. And Ibrahim Traoré's actions have created a movement that is spreading with astonishing speed. A revolution is never just about one person. It is about the moment when one person's consciousness spreads and becomes the consciousness of many. In Burkina Faso, this spread occurred like a psychological contagion. Initially, there was skepticism. The people had been disappointed too many times by the promises of leaders. They thought Ibrahim Traoré was just another military officer with big words. But the first believers emerged when they saw concrete actions backing those words. Farmers received seeds and training instead of speeches. Local businesses received support instead of bureaucracy. Communities received resources instead of excuses. The tipping point occurred when the results began to be visible. Villages produced enough food not only to feed themselves, but to sell the surplus. Local cooperatives succeeded in processing and marketing their products. Young people started to see opportunities at home rather than abroad. Skepticism turned into belief, and belief turned into action. A mass conversion took place when the majority of the population bought into the vision. This was not a conversion through propaganda, but through experience. When people see with their own eyes that self-reliance works, they embrace it. When they taste the success of collective effort, they want more of it. Concrete manifestations appeared in every sector. In agriculture, farmers began experimenting with traditional seeds that proved more resilient than imported varieties. The formation of local agricultural cooperatives created economies of scale and shared knowledge. Knowledge-sharing networks emerged organically as farmers realized that a neighbor's success meant the community's success. Innovation and adaptation at the grassroots level produced solutions that no foreign expert had thought of. In education, teachers incorporated local knowledge into the curriculum. Students learned about local heroes alongside global figures. They studied local ecosystems, local history, and local possibilities. Students developed pride in their local culture and capabilities rather than seeing everything local as inferior. New educational priorities emerged, practical skills alongside cultural identity. The brain drain slowed as opportunities appeared locally and young people saw a future at home. In the economy, entrepreneurs started looking for local solutions rather than foreign partnerships. Investment shifted from foreign partnerships to local capabilities. New business models emerged based on local value creation rather than extraction. Economic nationalism developed, but without xenophobia. Burkina Faso wants to trade with the world as an equal partner, not a dependent client. A revolution is not just about changing hearts and minds, but also about changing systems and structures. Ibrahim Traoré understood that sustainable change needs institutional backing. Government restructuring took place systematically. Ministries were refocused from aid coordination to production support. The Ministry of Agriculture stopped being a liaison with donors and became a catalyst for local production. The Ministry of Health integrated traditional medicine with modern healthcare. The Ministry of Education prioritized relevant skills over foreign credentials. Budget reallocation moved from prestige projects to productive infrastructure. Instead of building monuments, the government built processing facilities. Instead of importing luxury cars for officials, the government invested in agricultural equipment. New metrics of success emerged. Self-reliance indicators rather than donor satisfaction ratings. Success was measured by local production capacity, not aid received. An economic policy revolution transformed the landscape. Import substitution policies were implemented with realistic timelines. Local industries received protection and support to develop competitive capabilities. Financial systems were designed to serve local production rather than facilitate capital flight. Trade policies protected emerging industries while encouraging efficiency and innovation. A cultural policy transformation ran in parallel. The official recognition of traditional knowledge systems elevated local wisdom to a national asset. The integration of local languages into official communication made government more accessible. Cultural events celebrating self-reliance and innovation replaced ceremonies honoring foreign donors. Media policies promoted positive African narratives rather than victim stories. A true revolution does not respect borders. The ideas of Ibrahim Traoré and the success of Burkina Faso began to resonate across Africa and beyond. Leaders from other African countries arrived to study the model. Mali, Niger, and Guinea began questioning their own dependency relationships. Youth movements across Africa adopted similar philosophies of self-reliance and dignity. Regional cooperation shifted its base from mutual weakness to mutual strength. Instead of cooperation agreements focused on how to attract more foreign aid, discussions focused on how to develop complementary capabilities. A Pan-African consciousness revival found practical applications rather than just rhetorical ones. Global attention intensified as the results became undeniable. International development organizations were forced to reconsider their fundamental assumptions about African capabilities. Academic institutions began studying the phenomenon, wondering how their theories got it so wrong. Media coverage shifted from skeptical to curious to admiring. Global South countries took note of an alternative development path that doesn't require submission to Western institutions. Perhaps most importantly, Ibrahim Traoré has contributed to an intellectual revolution. A new development theory is emerging, based on endogenous capabilities rather than external inputs. The challenge to neo-colonial assumptions about African potential is forcing a rethinking in academic and policy circles. The demonstration of an alternative path to modernization shows that the Western model is not the only way. This proof of concept for self-reliant development is inspiring movements worldwide. But a revolution is truly measured by the transformation it creates. The numbers and policies only tell part of the story. The real transformation happens at the level of individual human beings, how they think about themselves, how they relate to the world, and how they envision their future. A deep psychological transformation took place. From dependency thinking to agency thinking. Before, we need someone to help us with every problem. Now, we can solve this problem if we organize properly. The evidence is seen in behavioral changes. Communities mobilize local resources for projects for which they would have previously waited for foreign funding, from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. Before, there aren't enough resources to do anything. Now, we have everything we need. We just need to organize and optimize. The evidence is seen in resourcefulness and innovation. People find creative solutions using available materials rather than complaining about what they lack, from individual to collective thinking. Before, I have to look out for myself because no one cares. Now, we succeed together or we fail together. The evidence is seen in increased cooperative behavior, community projects, and mutual support systems. Individual transformation, when it occurs at scale, creates societal transformation. Burkina Faso is experiencing fundamental shifts at every level. The economic ecosystem transforms as local businesses link with each other, creating networks of mutual support. Innovation clusters emerge spontaneously as solution-focused groups form around specific challenges. Financial circulation improves as money stays local longer, creating multiplier effects. Value creation becomes the focus, rather than just resource extraction. Social structures strengthen as community organizations become more effective. Intergenerational knowledge transfer accelerates, with elders sharing wisdom and youth sharing energy. Gender dynamics shift as women take leadership roles in new economic activities. Youth engagement increases dramatically as young people see a future at home rather than abroad. Institutions evolve to serve the people better. The government becomes more responsive as public servants feel accountable to citizens rather than donors. Education becomes relevant as schools teach skills needed for local development. Healthcare innovation integrates traditional medicine with modern technology. The legal framework adapts to support local enterprise and innovation. When individual and societal transformation combine, the result is national transformation, a fundamental change in the character of the entire country. Economic indicators show dramatic shifts. Food security improves from import dependence to export capability. Employment grows in productive sectors rather than a service economy dependent on foreign spending. The trade balance improves with reduced imports and increased value-added exports. Financial independence grows as reliance on foreign aid and loans decreases. Social indicators reflect deep changes. Education outcomes improve with relevant skills and cultural pride, replacing a colonial mentality. Health metrics benefit from improved nutrition and integrated healthcare approaches. Social cohesion strengthens with a shared sense of national unity and purpose. Migration patterns reverse as youth stay and the diaspora considers returning. The country's international standing transforms completely. Regional leadership emerges as other countries study the Burkina Faso model. Global recognition grows for its successful self-reliant development approach. Partnership terms change as negotiations happen from a position of strength rather than weakness. Soft power increases as its cultural and intellectual influence grows. But the intangible transformation is perhaps the most important. National confidence builds as people believe in their collective capability. A future orientation develops as planning happens for generations rather than just for surviving today. Creative energy explodes with innovation and experimentation at every level. Moral authority grows as the country stands up for the principles of dignity and self-determination. An academic revolution forces rethinking in universities worldwide. Development theory adapts to accommodate an endogenous capabilities framework. Research priorities shift to local knowledge and solutions. Educational curricula begin, including African success stories. Publishing platforms open to African perspectives and voices. A media transformation changes global narratives. Coverage shifts from Africa as a problem to Africa as a source of solutions. Documentary interest grows as filmmakers document the transformation. Social media enables African voices to control their own stories. Cultural products like music, literature, and art celebrate self-reliance and achievement. A revolution's true measure is its impact on future generations. Children growing up in Burkina Faso today will have a completely different worldview from their parents. Their educational foundation will teach them that they are creators, not just consumers. Skill development will focus on practical abilities to solve local problems. Cultural grounding will provide a strong sense of identity and capability. A global perspective will enable confident engagement with the world as equals. Institutional sustainability develops through policy frameworks designed to maintain self-reliance. Economic structures include built-in protections against redependency. Cultural preservation mechanisms maintain revolutionary values. A leadership pipeline ensures a new generation is committed to the chosen path. Regional integration proceeds as African countries cooperate as equal partners. Knowledge networks share innovations and best practices. Cultural exchange celebrates diversity while building unity. Political coordination develops common positions in international forums. If the Burkina Faso model spreads successfully, a global transformation becomes possible. The development paradigm will undergo a complete rethinking. International relations will become more equitable. Economic systems will base trade on mutual benefit rather than exploitation. A cultural renaissance will bring respect for all civilizations and knowledge systems.